Welcome to the Opus Dei Academy of Food. Today's study subject, WawNeTuakL. This will be a level 3, base 1 of 4, and we start with WawNeTuakL. What all we need everyone to understand and know. Today we're going to look at the pandemic, epidemic, and all the illnesses that have plagued humanity. For this time period we're going to look at today is the time of evil spirits. It's living backwards. Because we lived backwards, they believed that it was the evil spirits that were coming in. Let's start in the year, the adversary, the condition, and the rebuttal. Okay? Now, when we use the word rebuttal, also could be just simply an occurrence or an understanding, a clicking, a conversation that was held on through the generations. To always search for this answer may have come generations down the line of life. Okay? So we'll go to 430 BC. The adversary, plague of Athens, typhus. And at this time period, there was a man by the name of Hippocrates. He's a 30-year-old Hippocrates. He is given a golden crown because there was warring fashions going on that this typhus decimated both sides. Hippocrates did not care, okay? Hippocrates was for the betterment of humanity. Brought and he received this gift because he was able to take the ill and bring them back into the status of well. So 165 AD, Antonine plague, smallpox, measles. It is labeled an idolater. 541 AD, the plague of Justinian, the bubonic plague. Hundreds of years later, 735, Japanese plague, smallpox. From Hippocrates till the year 1050, there doesn't seem to be too much for rebuttal. Again, they believed it was evil spirits. So 1050, most microorganisms can't grow in honey. This is the origin. Comes from a language. The society chose hydromel for a purpose. 1200 AD. Spirits of Asper. Rough breathing. Spirits of Asper was known to be in the presence of someone having rough breathing. Spiritus frumente is the fix. And spiritus lenis, smooth. Okay, in actuality, whiskey is found, discovered, and they name it the water of life, the refuge. The rough, the fix, the smooth, the refuge. Okay? If you had a bottle of whiskey and you use it to keep yourself well, okay, it was where you found your refuge. If you didn't consume it, you could pour it on the ground, feed the plants, return the nutritional value back to the soil from which it comes. Whiskey made from grains. Whiskey in and of itself considered the water of life. If you look here in America, they don't have the ingredient listing on beer nor hard liquor. Okay? Because I gotta tell you something. What was once considered whiskey, the water of life, today brings more people, more trouble, more damage than they'd ever know. I'd like to see us in the future make sure that people put the ingredients. If I know what's in a Kraft macaroni and cheese, and even if I still choose to eat it, at least I know what I am eating. 1350 AD. This one is called the Black Death. This too is a bubonic. The rebuttals from hydromel, and after the spiritus lenis, mustard. Okay, we know it as mustard today. And it was actually made in a relish at first, and then we came to the mustard powder and moved on. And thank God there are people that are alchemists. Big discovery here, because big thyme oil. If you look at a lot of the European around the Mediterranean area, North Africa, thyme in those areas, they have very specific spices that they consume to maintain their wellness. So in that period of time, up until 1350, from 1320 to 1352, we're dealing with the same Black Death principles. 1320 AD, Mongolia. The plagues now take a pneumonic form. This is crazy. 95% death rate. That's 10 out of 10, with just a few getting a lucky not to be the 10th. Mongolia. 1345, Paris. The Black Death, which they refer to as the plague. They make the claim it was created. Listen to what created this. From a triple conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars in the 40th degree of Aquarius. Yersinia, Pestius, bacterium. Okay? Yersinia, Pestius, bacterium. Look it up, do a little research just to see what we deal with, that what we can't see can bring us harm. So in 1320, Mongolia, in a pneumonic form with 95% death rate, they leave where they are and they move to China. And the Turks, in 1346, the Turks are fighting the Italians. So they're fighting the Italians. In the Middle East, the Turks that are dying, to get rid of the bodies, decide, let's catapult these dead bodies on those Italians on the other side of the wall. So from the Middle East, the Italians end up in Europe. See, the fleeing Italians return back, infecting the general public. In this time period, in Venice, 100,000 people dead. 1747, from the spread now continues to Paris, 50,000 dead there. 1348, Britain. 1352, the European continent, 1 of 3 population dies. 1352 until 1700, when the plague ended. Small little skirmishes there, little skirmish there. Somehow it is kept from, 1320 until 1700. Plague ended that many years from when it began. As I just realized now, it's not that we live evil living backwards. It's just that we just don't live it to our fullest correctness. So let's deal with the spirit. Influence, influenza. The adversary, the condition, the rebuttals. Now, mind you, we found a few things that are in play as far as humanity is concerned. And we're always cognizant of the fact that this happens. So in 1370, oregano is brought into the repertoire of wellness. We know that the oil of oregano, okay, does amazing things. It's why they called it the mountain of joy. Now, in 1400, we discover the word influent. Influence, influenza. And influent. What we learned is that something can come into the environment, establish itself, and become prevalent. So in 1520, we have the Mexico pandemic. It's the New World smallpox. 1550, we have the Coco-Lizidi epidemic. But in 1560, from 1400 to 1560, we understand what an influent is, and then we understand that that influent has the ability to grow and bear influence. I'm a gambling man, and I approach a basketball team, and I say, hey, whoever wants to score extra points tonight, $50, okay? That would be an influence. 1575, we have the Mexico epidemic, number 2. This time they know it's the Coco Lazidi. What is the rebuttal? The discovery of molasses brought into our repertoire. 1501 to 1590, typhus is still around. Again, little spot here, little spot there. Not necessarily something that would break up and take over a continent, but I am sure region to region it was still a battle. So up until molasses, now we have 15 years later, typhus, and we come up with the spirit of turpentine. Spirit of turpentine neutralizes parasites. 1610, 20 years later, we introduce a word, deterge. You would know it as soap, okay? A deterge takes something that doesn't belong, it pulls it, and if used correctly, the water comes in and cleans. Again, you can have detergent, all it's going to do is pull. That deterge needs that water to come in to wash it clean. Deterge. Yeah, like detergent. Deterge. 1630. We have the Italian plague. Bubonic. Another great rebuttal. We discover bay leaf oil. 1665. Naples plague. Again, bubonic. Realize that it's diuretic urine. Thank goodness. Thank you, Lord. In 1670, microscopes are first used. We also discover another word, expectorant. 1735, influaction. 1735, that same man that offered that money to anybody who scored more points than they normally scored had an influence, and the team each member of that team scored 15 more points than they normally do. Total blowout. So I enter, I'm the influent. I offer up cash as an influence. We win the game, and now I have demonstrated an influenza. That's a good Uncle Richie. And here comes somebody not so good. Microorganisms that are adversaries or can hold an adversarial condition. They enter our environment. They are an influent. We let them fester, and we don't do what we're supposed to do, our inherent responsibility. Then it can form an influence. So if you want to know why there's a common cold, pay attention to what I am saying. If we don't clean up, and somebody gets sick and departs from the environment, say to go to the store or go to work or go to church, now they bring that influence into the church. And now instead of one household being sick, now we have multiple households. And when that sickness is finally gone, whether it's just taken people their lives or just made them ill for an extended period of time, then it delivers ultimately an influenza. An influenza, ZIA, then an influenza later down the line in history, influenza, and today we use the word flu. As we made way through the historic account of plagues, flus, pandemics, epidemics, from what we know as the beginning of written time, there's a time frame that we passed through that I'd like to revisit. Time era is 1665. We have the Great Plague of England, the Naples Plague, and in this course of time, 1630 to 1665, another vocabulary word was given to humanity. Semitic. Okay? Shortly thereafter, all this had occurred, 1670, the microscope. We were able to scope, to see micro, that cannot be seen by the human eye. During the time of 1375, with an important time period of 1425, and carrying on through 1675, we have the Diarists. Now, diarist gave us vocabulary words of expectorants, Semitic, effervescent, and diuretic. 1675, there's a changeover to folk medicine. Now, the reason folk medicine carries us forward is, as we see, with something known as turpentine. Turpentine delivers a word, anthelmintic. Medicines that anthelmintic stun. Vermifuge, those that stun. And vermicide, those that kill. All used to destroy parasitic worms. You think of worms, don't think of fishing. Just think of the worm as being small on the feeding chain. Folk medicine gives us the stun, those that stun, and those that stun to kill. At the same time, majestic medicinalness, God, nature, turpentine. How did they have paint remover, paint stain remover, and paint thinner before paint? Turpentine, anthelmintic, diaphoretic, diuretic, purgative, and stimulant. One item, turpentine. Now, what folk medicine had realized, with 6 volumes of lime water, this produces rectified oil of turpentine. The Greek word oleum terebinthine, recticum. Folk medicine gains its wisdom. Medical laboratory, from this one medicine, just in the anthelmintic aspect, medical laboratories come up with 21 medicines for just the aspect of that of turpentine. 4 more aspects left in the singular form of turpentine equals more meds and muck. What I want you to do is see the history of turpentine, the recipe, how it was taken from pine tree stumps that were left in the ground for 20 years. I would have loved to have been there in that conversation when somebody's grandpap was telling a grandchild, we're going to cut this tree down, leave the stump, you come back in 20 years, suck that oil out and see what we have. From this point, folk medicine knew that you could have something to take care of something light, something to take care of medium, something to take care of something major, or now just a full-out assault to destroy the adversary. One of our weapons in eliminating the adversarial condition, as well as the adversary that infects germs inside of our inner terrain. They have 21 medicines just for turpentines and anthelmintic. In closing, just do a little research. What I want you to understand is, this is 1665. If we had wiped out, I can assure you, 50,000 people, because turpentine was no good for the human body, I would present that case. That's not the case. Now again, does that turpentine come from nature? Or do we have a means of it being brought to us that is not allowed to enter into our body because of how it was amassed or what it is amassed in? Okay? If something is amassed and what it takes to amass such is 3 things that are counter to our existence: poisonous, toxic, then we can't take it. But stripped down to its bareness, turpentine brings a lot to the offering from nature. Spirit of turpentine, the oil, the rectified oil of turpentine. There are means for us to be able to take control of our wellness and hold off all adversarial conditions, which that in itself would vacate the ability for any adversary to land inside of our body and take residency. If we fulfill our potential of hydrogen, it is impossible for any adversarial condition to exist.